The next item on the agenda is hearing of citizens. Before we get into the hearings of citizens, there is an item on the agenda that I suspect many people are here for. And I want to read a statement into the record before we move on to hearings of citizens. Good evening. The governing body is aware that many of you come out tonight to speak about the homeless camp in Howell Township. We are also aware that there is information being conveyed that is not accurate and painting this governing body in a negative light. Despite the fact that this governing body has done more for the homeless than any municipal body in the area, we are now being threatened with litigation. Therefore, we have been advised to not respond to any questions about this matter in order to protect the taxpayers of Howell Township. However, in the interest of ensuring the public has accurate information, we would like to highlight some key information. Howell Township came into possession of the land on June 30th, 2011, by way of a donation. According to the deed restriction, the township was required to maintain possession until at least July 9th, 2014, which was 3 years and 10 days from the date of transfer. In February 2014, the governing body began discussing the potential sale of the property and authorized the appraisal on March 21st, 2014, which valued the property at $1.2 million. Around July of 2015, the township began to receive complaints about a group living in the woods in the area. The same group remains on site to date. Upon subsequent investigation by then Mayor Gatto and myself, former Township Manager Mayfield was directed to address the situation in the most compassionate way possible. After exploring various options, Township Manager Mayfield proposed a temporary solution. The solution included partnering with Destiny's Bridge, a nonprofit who would supervise the Howell Transition Encampment. Destiny's Bridge provided a plan that included the temporary housing and care of homeless individuals and building a transitional housing community. The proposal provided for an intake process as well as each individual to sign a release and hold harmless agreement and a community agreement. Aside from the community rules and regulations, each of these signed agreements clearly indicated in part, and I quote, "I am aware that this is a temporary housing arrangement and that this does not create any type of landlord-tenant relationship. I further understand that the Township of Howell holds the right to close the camp at any time to sell the property. This homeless encampment has always been intended to be temporary. Destiny's Bridge and each individual staying on township property has been aware of this. The understanding was officially memorialized by the governing body via Resolution R-17-138, which contains language that mirrors the language indicating a temporary housing arrangement and the town's right to sell. On April 17, 2018, via Resolution R-18-128, the governing body authorized the sale of this property through an open public auction. The auction was originally scheduled for May 21st, 2018. However, it was delayed and a new resolution, R-18-161, was passed that rescheduled the auction for June 20th, 2018. The opening bid was set at the most current appraised value of $1.355. On April 18, 2018, the township manager notified Minister Steve Brigham and Destiny's Bridge of their intent to sell this subject property. This letter was delivered via email, overnight mail, and hand-delivered. Minister Brigham was notified by the township manager on May 30, 2018 of the change in auction date. On April 18, 2018, various township officials met with representatives from Destiny's Bridge. During that meeting, there was discussion as to how many residents Destiny's Bridge had been able to transition to permanent housing. We were very disappointed to learn that there had been no residents transferred to permanent housing to date. Despite many people having been there for over 3 years, There was also a discussion about potential closing dates for the sale. It is believed that where Destiny Bridge has come up with the July 20th date to vacate. The public auction was held in the municipal building on June 20, 2018. 2 bidders offered competitive bids, with the highest bid being offered in the amount of $1.63 million. The acceptance of the bid is on tonight's agenda for the governing body to contemplate. As part of the advertising, auction, and sale of this property, it has been consistently articulated that, and I quote, "The property is currently occupied by an unknown number of homeless individuals. The successful bid agrees that all responsibility for relocating those individuals from this property shall be the sole responsibility of the successful bidder, and the township shall not be required to assist financially or otherwise in the relocation of the individuals on the property." Let me be very clear about that language. It was included to let potential purchasers know that the township was not going to spend taxpayers' money on relocation. The language was not intended to create a duty on the part of the purchaser or to tell the purchaser how to relocate the individuals, nor was it intended to create any rights whatsoever in the members of the encampment. The language was included to protect the township and was for the township's benefit and nobody else. Destiny's Bridge has posted on social media that they have until July 20th, 2018 to vacate the property. This is completely untrue. To date, the township has never set a deadline for the property to be vacated. The township has been advised that the purchaser has met with some representatives from Destiny's Bridge. He inquired what the needs of Destiny's Bridge was to relocate the individuals in their care. Upon not receiving a response, he made an initial offer. That offer was quickly turned down, with individuals quickly turning to social media to criticize. Last Friday, the township was contacted by an attorney indicating that he represented some members of the encampment. As recently as this afternoon, the township attorney has been working to try to coordinate meetings with the attorney, the purchaser's attorney, and township officials in an effort to come up with a plan that works for everyone. It is disheartening to hear members of the public and the camp criticize Howell Township when we have provided land to use and made improvements to that land for the camp's benefit. The township has also arranged for access to medical screening, vaccinations, county social services, PAP clinics, and so forth and so on, all while this was the responsibility of Destiny's Bridge. I maintain that Howell has done far more than any other town around. The council is now faced with balancing the needs of these dozens of people versus the needs of over 50,000 residents. I ask you to contemplate how many would benefit from the injection of an anticipated $1.6 million plus the tax revenue by 10 acres of prime commercial real estate. There was also some other information on the social media. And by the way, social media is a great tool and it's a powerful tool. But it's unfortunate when people post misinformation, inaccurate information for whatever reason, whether it's politics or just to get a rise, I don't know. But it's our duty up here, A, to be fiscally responsible to all residents of the township, compassionate to people in our care and in our town, which is everything we have done. Now, one of the things that was posted on social media, and I believe it was by a resident, was that there was another offer for this property by Habcor. And albeit there was a very small email exchange between the current manager and a representative of Habcor, the true story wasn't told. And again, it's unfortunate that residents choose to put misinformation out there to get a rise. Brian, I know there was some clarification that we asked you to clarify in response to this misinformation that's going out and the posting of, albeit the small little email exchange, when people don't realize that, you know, you've had multiple conversations. And I would really ask that you kind of itemize what has been said out there and what is actually the truth and the facts.
Deputy Mayor, after being advised of the the resident making statements on social media. I had sent an email to the executive director of HABCOR asking just a few questions that he quickly responded to. Essentially, the short version is, at that price range, they never would have been able to compete in that auction. They were looking for a donation of the property instead. The resident was also indicating that they would have been paying taxes. He clarified that they would have actually been seeking the pilot from the township as well. So that was clearly false information, and I can forward you a copy of the email exchange if you'd like.
I appreciate that. Again, the purpose of this is always to give the truth and the facts. This is a sensitive information, a sensitive situation. It's worldwide. It will never be solved by local municipalities. The people of Howell Township have been outpouring in helping people that may have just hit some hard times. But it's unfortunate that sometimes the old saying, no good deed goes unpunished, and we are facing potential of litigation. So I want to remind the public that I'm going to open up the meeting to consent agenda items or any items, but this council, again, has been directed by our legal counsel to refrain from any answering of any questions on this topic. So I kindly ask you to adhere to that for the potential of litigation. And thank you for indulging me to read that.
Deputy Mayor, members of the Town Council, everyone else in Township government, and I guess everyone back there. My name is Jeff Wild. I am a partner at Lowenstein Sandler, 1 Lowenstein Drive, Roseland, New Jersey. I believe we're New Jersey's largest law firm. We also had the honor of representing about 120 people who lived in the Lakewood tent city, and we were successful after years of litigation in getting 6 months of rental housing for every resident at the expense of Lakewood. So this is a subject matter I know a little bit about, and hopefully I am not here to threaten litigation, and I am not here to posture. I am a problem solver, and I am here in the hope that we can avoid litigation. I believe the Deputy Mayor accurately described the chronology in a lot of ways, and I believe that Howell has acted humanely and lawfully right up until this very moment. I think we're at a point where I'm going to make a very modest request to avoid any chance that Howell would cross over the line into not doing it the right way, because you have been the good guys, and you have done this humanely for a very long time. I'm also the president of the New Jersey Coalition to End Homelessness. We're the only organization in the state that represents New Jersey's homeless people. And anybody who thinks that homeless people in New Jersey are like crazy people on the sidewalk in New York doesn't know a lot of homeless people, because they're people who are well-educated, hardworking. The people in this city are going to work and trying to make things right for themselves. I'll tell you what my suggestion is. I know you'll do whatever you'd like and whatever your council thinks. I think we have a win-win, and I think we should all be on the same side and not go down the path that has happened in the past here. My ask, I guess, paraphrase John Lennon, give peace a chance. You've already done one thing which I think is really positive. At least I had heard that at a meeting last Monday, some persons connected with Howell had said, you need to get off by this Friday, the 20th. And what I'm hearing is consistent with the good faith of Howell that I've encountered so far, and that the whole point of your sale was that the responsibility for relocating you feel is the buyers, and therefore I hope you can confirm that you're not going to force off anybody. You're selling the land, and you have contractually put that responsibility onto the buyer. But you've already allayed a lot of concerns by that first statement, which I appreciate. The one thing which I think sounds unimportant but really is important is I would ask for 30 days to sit down, and Deputy Mayor Nicastro was right. there are discussions going on right now about a meeting with my firm on behalf of my clients, who include the homeless people in this room, many of them, and the attorney for the potential buyer. I believe that this is easily solvable in a humane way, and I believe we can do it in 30 ways as long as we maintain the status quo and there is not a vote tonight on this resolution. You were very smart in the notice of sale to give yourselves 2 township meetings before making a decision. Time to get all the facts and to listen and to let meetings occur to try and settle the situation. And that's why I think it's important that this be tabled until the next meeting. And if I have not been successful in solving this problem, so be it. You can approve it then, but there is no time pressure to do it tonight. Let me explain some new developments. And Mr. Nicastro is right. This has been going on for a long time, but you've never met me. And my law firm has never been involved. And there are 2 very important new developments. The first one is our firm, after investigating the situation and studying the law, said we are going to, for free, represent these people and try to negotiate a solution with Howell and the potential buyer. I have not been hired to sue anybody. It is the last thing I want. That's why I reached out to a lot of the people in this room to try and sit down and talk before anybody does something which they might regret later. The other big development is that as of yesterday, I believe, I was contacted by a seller for the high bidder. We are entertaining actively ways that we could resolve this inexpensively, potentially, and without any financial contribution, at least for present purposes and maybe ever, from Howell. So it's another reason why I hope in a lot of these new developments, I know you've been patient for so long, but you will give me and my law firm 30 days to solve this. I believe we can. There's a right way and a wrong way to solve these difficult problems. I can tell you the right way, you are almost there. The right way is to come up with a relocation plan, and you almost did it, but you put in the notice the buyer's responsible for it. Almost there, but you, I hope, will meet with me and the buyer with no obligation on anybody's part to fill out the details, to tell a homeless person, as the high bidder so far has, here's $1,000, that's enough to relocate in the state of New Jersey to new housing. It's just not accurate. It is true that I'm here to avoid litigation. The issue I want to avoid is something really interesting called the Poor Laws. It goes back to Elizabethan times, and it says every municipality, at the end of the day, if the system fails and you've got people outside in your land, you have the responsibility ultimately for helping them. I do not want to reach that issue. We were successful in the last case like this. I don't want to be successful in this case in the same way. What I'd like to do is to formulate a humane plan where people will get moved to housing where they can live. I was moved when you swore in your new officers and said, uphold the law of New Jersey and the New Jersey Constitution. It says in there that there is a right to emergency shelter, that if you find people living out in the woods, you can't just get away from that obligation by selling the land. Lawyers speak, you can't delegate that particular duty.
And just for the record, that's not what we have done.
Okay, well, I thought that I am not here to criticize anything that you've done. I've got a solution, but I will tell you that at least under my interpretation of the law, and this is one which at least prevailed in 3 years of litigation, you cannot sell land and delegate. You have to try and solve the problem before you approve the sale. And if a sale is approved without that plan being in place, that's where you're crossing into uncharted legal territory. You don't need to do it. I heard about $1.25 million surplus that you have. Don't pay lawyers. Ask anybody from Lakewood how much they spent on litigation. It is not something in your taxpayers' interest. This is something which can be resolved for a pittance compared to that, and I think that we are now discussing a possible resolution to this. I would ask, because I know there's a limit on my time here, that the members of the council consider taking a brief recess, like the 5-minute recess you took before. Consider what I've said. There is no downside to giving peace a chance for 30 days and sitting at the table, which I will represent, has not happened yet. There's a willingness to do it, but because my firm was just retained and council was just retained.
I thought you weren't retained.
I'm sorry?
I thought you weren't retained.
No, I am representing
Oh, now you are
homeless
retained.
resident. I have not been retained to sue. I've been retained to solve this and meet with you. And that's what I'm proposing is one meeting. You've been talking for years and it's gone nowhere, but I have a track record of success here. My firm has solved the problem, gotten people out of the woods, and done it in a way where ultimately Lakewood got the high praise that it deserved at the end of the day. We can be on the same team, we can solve it, but I don't think you need to take that extra step tonight. It is a big step. I don't think any municipality in New Jersey history has ever taken it. At least let me talk to your attorney about the legal authorities for what I just said.
I will note your request. I will also thank you for your advice as an attorney not to want to go into litigation, as that is the way you make your living.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And, to say that you're a problem solver is good, and that you've solved the problem in Lakewood and made the problem in Howell is just a little ironic. Not that you made the problem, but
Yeah, I'm new here.
you didn't solve any problem.
I'd love to give you a chance.
It moved from one to the other. Your request is noted, and we will continue this meeting. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor and everybody else over here. Rumu Das Gupta, 11 Chatham Ridge Road, Freehold, New Jersey. I'm just here to clarify one point. I had met with you, Deputy Mayor Nicastro, and town manager and lawyer, and I do last Monday, at where we had. I was told that July 20th, which was a date which had somehow come about from discussions earlier, would stand. And when I asked you for an extension, I hope you remember,
I do.
I asked you for an extension till at least the end of July. And I was told that that wouldn't be granted, that that the more time we were given, the more we would procrastinate, and that what we really should do was pack up, start moving, and that the town manager would be by to inspect on the moving. So, now when you say that you actually had not given a date, that sounds, very disingenuous to me. But I just wanted to clarify that point. But I agree entirely with the chronology that you presented. I have no quarrels with that whatsoever. And I really would like, more than anything, time. Time is what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. And with all due respect, I think your clarification is a little not correct from my recollection of the meeting with you, and the mayor was also in attendance. Point one is the manager did not go there to inspect the move of the property. He went there to inspect the condition of the property. He was never there to inspect the move because that was never said. And
No, that was exactly what was said.
No,
I don't want to stand here
and we won't.
I won't,
We-
because
we-
that's exactly what he was
My
said,
recollection was that
going
he
to
was-
go and inspect the state of the move. And
inspect the property.
the
There was no
other
move.
point-
There was no move taking place, so he can't inspect the
No,
move when there's no the move.
the progress. What kind of progress was being made? And I
The sec-
recall very well, you're also saying that you almost made it sound that you were speaking on, you had the interests of which I definitely think you always had, otherwise you wouldn't have allowed this 1 year. But you said that we really should be moving before the new buyer brought in the police to forcibly remove us. And that you said that was something that you wanted to avoid And I wish somebody had recorded that.
Yeah, me too,
meeting.
because I'm looking at the
I
manager
really
and those
wish,
words never came
because
out.
that's because I'm not smart enough to cook up those kind of ideas. Why would I say anything of that sort? But I do remember you saying that if we needed to be proactive, that to avoid the possibility that the new owner might bring the police to forcibly remove us. I remember that very clearly. And so I just want, so that essentially said how serious you were about this, that the people being moved by this designated date. So I just wanted to clarify those points, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the April 20th date was something which I kept asking to be moved. I kept asking that couldn't we move till the end? But now, I lay down all those points. I mean, I'm not going to quarrel with you on those things, because I'm really, I would like for you to consider, just this point about extension, that's all. So, but I did want to clarify that was why we, all got extremely, busy trying to move. And of course, that was the reason.
Did you say you're busy trying to move? I'm just asking.
Right, because, we had to move a lot of things from the encampment. We had a lot of things.
Has there been progress made at all, ma'am?
It has. We are moving step by step. And actually, of course, we had to decide where things would be moved. So that was the first thing which had to be decided, and how it would be moved
Have you come up with any?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Would you?
However,
Could you enlighten us?
Pardon?
Could you enlighten us?
I don't think we are really clear about all the details, because, we still don't know where the people would be going. And so we are still working on that. And that's why we would like the extension of the time. That's what we really would require more than anything. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I will say, your want to clarify actually doesn't clarify the facts, as I and my the administration remember. But
I was just wondering if you are going to vote on it tonight on the sale of the land. Is that a go tonight?
it's on the agenda.
Because I'm wondering if you have a quorum to vote on this, if there's any conflict of interest of any members of the voters present?
No, we will be calling Mrs. Smith. We will have a quorum, and we will. It's on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Minister Stephen Brigham, Howell, New Jersey. First of all, somebody said, judge no man by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. First of all, nobody from our encampment sent an email about Habcor. Nobody. Do you have the name on that email?
I don't think that was said.
Do you have the name on that email?
I do. It was not a member of the
thank you,
encampment.
thank you.
That was never indicated.
Yes, it was indicated.
No,
Somebody-
it was
Yes, it was.
It was said a resident.
We all heard it.
What did you?
It was indicated that somebody in the encampment sent that email. Okay, that didn't happen. All right, just to make that clear. I remember the night that we heard about the sale of the property, and we came here. A couple of the members of the encampment, myself, we sat down, and I came to the microphone, and Mayor Teresa Berger was here, and I addressed the committee, and I went back to my seat. Before I sat down in my seat, Mayor Teresa Berger said, Minister Steve, we are going to do whatever we can to help you and to relocate you. She said that. And I sat down with a very fulfilled and confident heart that this committee right here, this township, was going to in some way help us. I went to a meeting the next day there, and it was a total different story. We cannot help you. I saw right then, again, a lot of insincerity. I agree. I believe this township did a great thing. This encampment is something, we're the only sanctioned camp on the East Coast from here to California, or from here to Florida. Nobody else. We have run that camp with dignity. There's never been any police activity coming down into that camp except one time where somebody from the outside came into our camp and they smashed our vehicle windows and dented up our vehicles from the outside. But we have never, not once, had a situation where the police had to come down into that encampment because of the residents of that camp.
Minister, if I may, in time, because we still have a lot to do. Can you make your point? Because those insinuations were never made that the encampment had problems or anything like that. This was a transition encampment. You had signed one of the agreements, knowing what the deal was. So please, I understand your emotions and all that.
All right, okay.
Let's stick.
Yeah, okay,
Let's stick to the point.
Okay. I think on both sides, we did very well. I kept my side of the bargain. You kept your side of the bargain.
Thank
We
you.
had something, you're very good.
Thank you.
What was your side of the bargain, sir?
Well, we had
Is that
certain,
any of
we had
Mr.
certain
Barker?
regulations, we had intake process, everybody had to be checked. So we had a lot of things that were required by the township that we fulfilled as a group, as an organization, as a nonprofit. We did our part.
And that this would be a temporary solution.
Right, okay. Nobody's saying
Okay,
that
just
that wasn't.
so- just
I'm
so
not
we're-
accusing you. Right, I haven't accused anybody.
Okay.
What we put in a clause, though, in the contract is that the buyer has a responsibility. And I hope that was sincere by the people here in this committee, that was a sincere.
It was sincere because he made an offer that the people in the
Right,
camp
right.
turned down.
When I asked people, when I talked to people, I went around to the people that I know, and they said, Minister Steve, it is so heartening to hear that the buyer is going to relocate you, meaning they thought it was something substantial.
What's substantial?
Substantial means substantial, not 2 weeks in a hotel. It doesn't mean that. It means something substantial. That's what it means, and that's what people thought. That was the spirit of that clause, and that's what people thought that was going to happen here. And so again, we're based on credibility here. This is what we're going by. This township from the get-go didn't show me a lot of credibility. We were both on the same plane. We both did our part. But then come that April meeting, I heard the township committee say we're going to help you the best we can. And then I heard another story, and I lost confidence.
You know, but truthfully, Minister, I was in on some of those meetings a year and a half ago, okay? And I've lost confidence personally. I listened to you say how this was going to be a temporary solution.
Right. It is.
Okay,
And
a year and a half later, hold on.
3 years.
Hold on, a year and a half later, where are we further along with a permanent resolution?
We're going to relocate the homeless, but we have got a clause that says that the buyer is to relocate, and we're going on the spirit of that clause. All right, that's as far as we're going.
But I'm going with some of the spirit of what you said a year and a half ago in the meetings we had.
Right,
We had meetings a year and a half ago,
right.
correct?
We did, yes.
And
We
during
found it,
those
yes.
meetings, you directly said to us that this would be a temporary resolution.
Right, it's
Okay, a
long-
year and a half later,
Right.
how far are you along towards a permanent resolution? You personally, you know, you talk about the spirit. A
Right.
year and a half later, where are you towards a permanent resolution?
Well, I tell you what, everybody in that homeless camp knows that this camp is closing, and we're going to do whatever it takes to relocate. Homeless people are used to that, getting beaten down by society. We're used to it, okay? All right, so
beat
we're
nobody
going to
down.
relocate. We're going to relocate, all right? But there's a clause in that contract. There's a clause there. And the spirit of that clause says we're going to relocate those homeless people in that encampment in Destiny's Bridge, and that means something substantial to almost anybody that read that. Anybody I've talked to said, Minister Steve, I'm so glad they put that in that contract, so you're going to be relocated. That was the spirit of that clause, and that's what people think. And that's what we're going by. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, somebody said, yeah, and I trust Dr. DeScoop to the utmost, and I believe everything she says. She's got extreme credibility as far as I'm concerned. Her ethics are above anybody that I know. So she said that you said the 20th of July, which is this Friday. So what is the date?
That date was given by you, as far as I know. It was never given by anyone in our administration.
Whatever, what's the?
So, listen, Minister, you're gonna sit here and tell me that you
I need
have
clarification. No, I've got people I'm taking care of. I need clarification.
Yeah. Well, the clarification is, you will know when.
So it's not this Friday. Thank you.
To be honest with you, I had
Name and address, please, for the record.
Yeah, it's the second time I actually did that when I appeared in April. John Town and 203 Colts Neck Road. That was the first time I appeared before the council, and I remember saying I look forward to appearing again, so here I am.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I remember, as has already been mentioned, and I know you mentioned time. There's a lot of things to do here. Time. These people have run out of their time. They're looking for a little bit more time. You feel you've given them enough time, maybe too much time. How much is this time really worth? There's a lot of emotions running high. I heard the comments earlier, well, there are things said on social media that were not fair or toward the council. You guys do this all the time. A lot of things in this town you deal with on a constant basis. There's always people being critical on social media. It's going to happen no matter what the situation is. So I hope that can be put aside from the fact that there are people there and there are lives there and they're trying to make something out of it in the time that they have left and the time they've had. You said they've had a year and a half, or you mentioned they've been in the woods for 3 years. When I came to the meeting in April, I had just recently started getting involved with Destiny's Bridge. I found out about them. I became very interested in their cause. I wanted to join them and help them because I cared about what they were doing. I didn't know about the politics of homelessness at all, except what I read in the paper or hear on TV. You know, it is a problem everywhere, but I disagree respectfully what you're saying is not going to be solved locally, because I think that's where it's going to happen. It's going to have to happen locally. Just like people who put forth the legislation recently in Trenton to get this tiny home movement started, where 2 areas in all 3 sections of the state are going to be asked to, if they want to be involved in that. Hal would have been a great one with this homeless camp experience to be involved in something like that, to get some of that grant money toward these tiny homes, to hopefully change this zoning procedure to help these people,
Just
to
so
help
you
them
know,
get more time.
Just so you know, in the meetings about a year and a half ago with the minister, with retired Sergeant Chris Hill from the Police Athletic League, who runs the program over there, it was all talked about back then, and the manager, retired Captain Mayfield for the police department. And it ended up not going nowhere. And that was after different explorations into it. So it wasn't a bad idea, okay? And it was worth looking into,
You're talking about the ordinance or the tiny homes?
the tiny homes.
Apparently, the state and some of our representatives are taking a better or a further look into it, and they think there is some validity. So
Well,
maybe
that
at the
was-
time,
That was a
not
year
for
and a half
Hal.
ago. I'm just saying, we looked at trying to do something to try to help on a temporary basis, knowing this would not be the long-term solution.
No, and I appreciate that very much, and I know what's been said about the amount of time, but I would submit for, thought that a year and a half, thinking that nothing's got accomplished. Well, I'll tell you what I've come to learn that has gotten accomplished. There were people who were in the woods in different areas with basically nothing, who were taken in by this camp, who went through an intake process, they went through a number of things to make sure they were acceptable to be in this camp. They helped get them in there. They got them established. They used some funds that they raised to get them tents and supplies and help them get food. They take care of each other to clean up that area. They went out to find some part-time jobs where they're going back and forth, maybe taking care of children or themselves. This is a lot to get accomplished and maintained during a year of time. Minister Steve Brigham spends most of his time at the camp doing things daily and going out to other areas, including Lakewood on Saturdays, to give out extra supplies to the homeless community there, people who need supplies. A year to be able to get an organization established, to get a facility, to get people to volunteer or people to get paid, to bring in social services or nurses or job training or anything else to try and get Destiny's Bridge off the ground to make this into something that they want it to be, a year is not a lot of time. But I
think-
submit that I'm not saying you have to give all that time. What I'm saying is they have tried, maybe not what you wanted, but they have tried and they have made some measurable progress as far as they're concerned in trying to help people's lives. So in the speed along the amount of time I have here, a gentleman came tonight. I've never met Mr. Wild before. I found out that he was coming to this meeting. It's my understanding that Destiny's Bridge does not have a lot of experience in all these things. Minister Steve's great on the pulpit, gives a great speech. He's been involved in this for years. He feels it from the heart, which is why there's so much emotion up here. But as far as dealing with the township, dealing with lawyers, dealing with different processes, feel like they're being pushed out. They reached out to somebody they were familiar with, somebody who was more a friend than a legal counsel, to ask him to help them, which is why I believe, without even having speaking to him, but having listened to him, that he came here to try and get a little bit more time to sit down and work it out. I know you feel you've given enough time. You want to have a vote. You want to move this along. In the media, which I can't recall who said it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was somebody from the township that said they might not have to be out for a couple months. All right, well, a couple of months, whether the July 20th date was mentioned or not, I know in the media, whether it's the press or NJ.com, I read, it could be a couple months. So Mr. Wild was asking for 30 days. And you thanked him, and he sat down, and then basically the last comment that I heard was, he didn't make the problem better, he shifted it to Hal.
He didn't shift it.
Well,
He
the
didn't shift it.
situation shifted to Hal, but 120 people in a tent city didn't come to Hal. People went to different areas after they moved, and they finally found a spot in Hal where they were found out eventually, and were able to work out an agreement with you. And that is appreciated, and I applaud you for doing that. But what I would ask for, when emotions are running high, and I see all the antagonism going back and forth because emotions are running high, you feel like you're being attacked, they feel like they're being thrown out, everybody's at edge. Is that 30 days really so much time? He basically said, at the end of the 30 days, if I can't get an agreement worked out, they're out. They're not even going to stand here and give you a hard time. But he's
Nobody
looking
said
to
that,
try and-
sir.
He did say that. He said at the end of the 30 days, if he can't get it done, then whatever you decide happens. So that can't be 30 days from this
That is
date?
not what was said, sir.
That's what he said. But then what did he say? What did he
I
say?
didn't-
I'm talking about Mr. Wild. He stood up here before.
Hold on.
Let me be clear. Let me be clear, Councilman. Tonight on the agenda is accepting the highest bidder.
Okay.
The attorney knows the process, okay? I'm not going to indulge in a back and forth conversation. It's going to be more than 30 days, I would assume, and he knows it, we all know it. So emotions are running high. We are a compassionate town. We are a compassionate community. You've witnessed it, you've seen it. We're not putting time, 3 years, whatever. Whether 120 people came here or whether 12 people came here, there was an agreement made. There was an understanding made, okay? There is no secrets here. This was full disclosure, transparent to the fullest, what the intentions of this property was. This was a transition camp. Please understand what we're doing tonight and what the chronological order was. We're all used to being up here, getting criticized.
Have I criticized you?
No. When you mentioned that, the tensions are high. No tensions are high here. There's no antagonization. We have a job to do. We serve a full community. There is an agenda to accept the highest bidder. Okay, we've heard everyone's compassion and statements, and that's what we're moving forward on the agenda tonight.
Okay, I appreciate that and the laser focus that you had on me while you said that, while you're saying there was no antagonistic.
You said it.
No, because the way you're looking at me right now and the way you're projecting and the way
How do
you're
I look?
saying
How
it, you're
am
not
I
exactly being friendly.
I can't
to
even
me
see
here.
you because the lights are in my
Well,
eyes. But go
and
ahead.
that's unfortunate. Maybe the lighting should be adjusted.
Maybe.
But I would mention too that the only reason we appeared at the April 17th meeting, if I have the date right, is because the day before or the morning of, Minister Steve found out that the property was up for the agenda. So in all this time, with all the back and forth, with all the chronology, no one could reach out to the camp and let them know that the property was being put up for bid the next day.
The agreement was that they would have a 30 days notice. We gave them over 30 days notice.
Well,
There's
you
no,
told them the next day in a letter or an email you stated that what we had already found out on the 17th. But nobody reached out to say, hey, this is coming up, and we have this great agreement with you, and we've had this process and this ordinance. Maybe you want to be here at the meeting tonight if you have anything you want to add. No one said anything, and we showed up without being invited, any announcement, just a little block in the paper saying which block and lot number, and somebody thankfully actually saw it, or we wouldn't have been here to voice any opinions at all, which is not exactly the way to go if you have an ordinance with people or a resolution and you're trying to solve this in a fair manner. That speaks volumes as far as just trying to move something along. And I get it, you have a lot to do.
Did we
I've
vote
taken
on
up
it
too
here?
much time.
Hold on. I want to understand something. Did we vote on this from the dais to put this piece of property up for sale?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the
At
17th.
the meeting, we voted to put the property up for sale.
on the
At a
17th.
minimum bid.
And your point is, because I mentioned that no one reached out to bother to say it was going to be on it. So if you have a great relationship and the town's done such a good job in trying to be a friend of the homeless, why can't anybody let them know, hey, tomorrow this is on the agenda. Maybe you'd like to show up since you have such a vested interest in the homeless that we've been here to help. But no one reached out to the camp at all. We had to find out on our own and come and find out that it was up. Yeah, is it your obligation? No.
I don't,
But as a friendly relationship between the camp,
I
why
was
not?
in on the initial conversations that we've not interacted ever since the initial meetings a year and a half ago.
Okay, so there's.
On an individual,
So
on
when
an individual
Hal's,
way.
in the governing body's feeling for people in the township that an ordinance has been established to help, there's no reason to bother to tell them that it's about to come up to a vote to end it until 30 days later, when they'll have 30 days less to be prepared for what they're doing.
Let me be clear. Your criticism is well noted.
Okay.
We don't typically do that. We treat every ordinance and every notice the same, but your criticism is noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And like I said, I wish you could give it the 30 days that was requested. I have a feeling when I sit down, you're going to say, we're going to continue with it, and I understand. But I would like to end with, I plan on attending as many meetings as possible in the future for all the different things that are going on in this township. I'm going to be very vocal on them. I'm going to get involved. And in the future, I plan on running for this council. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
My name is Teresa Farran. I'm from Freehold, New Jersey. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm watching you and you're saying no hostility. You know, and this is all politics. And you know what? With everything that's going on in the world, we're sick of politics. These are human beings. This is a community. This, you know, yes, it's say, okay, well, we'll send you to a hotel. But that's not the point. These people have formed a community, a little thing of their own. They've had a garden, and they have a church, and they have, and where are they going to go? And who? And yes, I think Howell's wonderful. I live in Freehold, and when they send me the thing to pay the cops, I send money. And you know what I put on the bottom? Thank you so much for being kind to the homeless. Steve tells the story about him being stuck one night and all of a sudden waking up the next morning and there's gas on his car, and the only person that could have known that was a cop. So we understand you guys are beautiful and you have a beautiful heart and it's very nice. But these are human beings. Please don't forget that. And all this politics and the land and all, this is people and this is a community. And I really hope you look into your hearts. Okay?
Thank you for that, and I would just say, I hope that Freehold Township would also look in their heart as much as Howell's looked in their heart.
I wish we could take them.
Yeah,
I wish
know.
we could.